All right, hey everyone, welcome to our presentation about a workshop series that started in 2023 in Palo Alto City Library. I was recently rebooted using some new techniques and tools, so we're happy to share those with you today. And as you might have guessed, I am Chris Markman. In a few minutes, I'm going to hand off the microphone to co-hosts Nick and Melissa, who will tell you more about the setup, the workshop, and things we learned along the way. Just to be clear, I'm the messenger on this one, so full credit to the Palo Alto team for making this workshop series happen. It's been very popular. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. Let me also say that you should stay tuned because in the second half of this workshop, we're going to show you some live demos of the process we used with customers. Also, I'll share some food for thought around AI ethics and digital literacy based on these conversations we're having with people who attend. And not only that, but as I said before, this is a workshop that we've done that has filled up immediately almost every time that we offered it. It is, a huge interest from our community. I think you'll probably say the same for your community as well. And with that, let me advance our slides to yes, we are recorded. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you to our sponsors as well. Here we are. Nick, take it away.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Nick. And before we dive in, I'll just outline what we'll cover today. I guess Chris already mentioned some of this, but I'll be talking a bit about our workshop structure and the evolution of it, and then we'll share some practical insights from our workshops, discuss the digital literacy aspects, and explore some of the ethical considerations around responsible AI use. Since launching our first AI storytelling workshops in 2023, we've witnessed some pretty incredible growth, both in the technology itself and in our patrons' engagement. What began as experimental sessions has evolved into structured programs serving diverse audiences across our community. Our goal today is to share what we've learned, demonstrate some practical applications, and hopefully inspire you to explore similar programs in your libraries. So let me start by giving you a quick overview of our AI storytelling workshop structure. It's a 2-hour hands-on experience designed for beginners who are curious about AI tools. Participants work in small collaborative groups where they use AI text generators to create short stories or poetry. And then they enhance these narratives with both AI-generated images and AI voice narration. All of these elements are then combined into short videos using a video editing software. And the finished stories are published on our library's Reboot Room YouTube channel. There's a link to that, I believe, in the description. And we also dedicate time for a meaningful group discussion at the end where participants share their reactions, feelings, and thoughts about AI's role in society. And this discussion also gives participants time to voice concerns about AI, explore future applications, and examine the limitations and ethical considerations of using AI. Now let's dive into how these workshops have evolved over time. In 2023, about 60% of our attendees had never used generative AI tools before. In our most recent workshop earlier this month, that number has dropped to around 30%, suggesting more people are becoming familiar with these technologies. We're also seeing more families and groups registering together, so interest in AI seems to be broadening beyond just tech enthusiasts to become more of a shared learning activity for people of all ages. We've also observed a change in expectations too. In our early workshops, participants with no AI experience often had higher expectations of what the technology could deliver. In our recent sessions, attendees were more familiar with AI's capabilities and limitations, and were even laughing together at quirky or unexpected results. And this seems to suggest a growing public awareness about what AI can and cannot do. In 2023, we faced several technical hurdles as well. For example, pre-image generation platforms often were just sort of demo accounts, and they limited participants to just 2 or less, sometimes, images because everyone was connecting from the same IP address. And we also spent considerable time setting up accounts and downloading software at the beginning of the workshop. But fast forward to 2025, and many of these challenges have been resolved. Now tools like ChatGPT offer integrated image generation with DALL-E through free accounts, allowing each participant to easily create 5 to 10 images for their stories without any IP-related limitations. We've also streamlined our setup process by asking participants to set up their accounts before the workshop, which has actually worked very well. And if you could move to the next slide, please, Chris.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, so the value of using multiple AI tools extends beyond just the creative output. It directly addresses digital literacy by teaching patrons how to combine different AI technologies to create a cohesive final product. And this practical application helps demystify AI and build confidence in using these tools responsibly. And it's a fun way to learn. Many of our attendees came up to thank us after the workshop and said they had lots of fun and they learned a lot. And honestly, we had a lot of fun too. So, and for our library staff, we also conducted a staff trial run before our recent public workshop. And this gave us a chance to get feedback on our workshop changes, while also improving AI literacy among our team members, who have now expressed interest in incorporating some of these tools into their own work. And looking forward, we've begun experimenting with AI video generation tools like Vdo, which we included in our most recent workshop as sort of an optional tool to experiment with. And we've also been experimenting with more advanced image generation tools such as Comfy UI, which is an open source node-based program that utilizes free diffusion models like Stable Diffusion. And this technology is evolving, rapidly. So we hope to be able to more fully integrate AI video generation and some of these more advanced AI tools into the program in the future. And now I will hand it off over to Melissa, who will provide some practical insights into the specific generative AI tools we've been using, and we'll take you through a little demo of our workshop structure.
Thanks, Nick. And as many librarians know, there's a lot of pre-workshop planning that goes into creating, especially a tech-related program. You need to decide maybe registration, what are your software requirements, hardware needs, and more. So for our workshop, we capped it and we had registration. We encouraged attendees to bring their own device. If they couldn't bring one, we had a few to offer for in-library use. We also encouraged setting up free AI accounts beforehand. And so if you're thinking about implementing an AI program, I would highly suggest having a registration form that asks those questions. Can you bring a laptop? How comfortable are you with using technology? And having responses go according to like a traffic light system with they can self-identify with, oh, I'm green, I need a lot of help, or I'm yellow, I know how to navigate email, websites, I possibly can do AI by myself, but I might need a little help. And then there's our red power users that are very familiar. They've used AI already and they're willing to assist others. So asking people to register in groups allows for more time on the actual workshop activity. And from those responses, if people didn't create their own group, you could always form teams, having 2 to 3 people, ideally one self-identified green person, no more than 2 reds. Have those extra laptops ready. And if someone didn't want to create a free account, they can partner with someone that expressed that they already set those up in registration, or they can team up with library staff that have those ready to go. So there are a ton of AI tools out there. As mentioned previously, for our workshops, we stuck with ChatGPT the second time around. With ChatGPT having the ability to do images, we created, we combined 2 of our steps. So the text generation and image generation in one step, just to reduce the number of free accounts that patrons would need to set up beforehand. And then with ChatGPT, you do need that free account to take advantage of the image generation. And then also reminding patrons that there can be limits with how many generations you can make on a free account. We also used 11 Labs, and a free account is needed to download the audio file. So we use that for narration. So we chose these AI tools just for their speed, the creativity, the user friendliness of the interfaces. So you'll see that in a little bit. So now moving on to the workshop breakdown in the middle of our slide. Again, it was a 2-hour program. We kicked it off with a 30-minute presentation, which included asking people, do you know what AI stands for? Or how about an LLM? What is GPT? We talked a little bit about machine learning, AI models and training, AI limitations, and of course, data privacy and ethical concerns. And after that, we outlined the workshop activity and gave a quick demo, and you'll see that in a second. And then we let patrons work with the AI tools for an hour and regrouped 30 minutes beforehand for the best part, the showing of AI video creations. And again, check out our YouTube channel from that. The AI storytelling playlist that we have on YouTube, it shows videos from the workshops in both 2023 and 2025. And so the difference between those is just incredible in terms of the stories that AI generates, the images, the voices, everything has improved so much. So it's interesting to compare those two. So then again, after we did that video showcase, we wrapped it up with a community conversation to hear the reactions, people's concerns, and things like that. And then so now we'll move on to the AI demo part. So let's take a look at the next slide. This would be the slide that I would leave up for patrons during their 60-minute activity time, just so they can see the steps that they need to go through. So the goal for patrons is to make it to at least step 3. It's optional to use Vidu.com in the video part. They don't necessarily have to make it all the way to video editing. They can do that at home if they like, but that was our goal, to have patrons at least make it to step 3. So with that, I'm going to walk us through these steps, and Nick is going to do a screen share of seeing these tools in action for everybody. So we're going to start with ChatGPT, and then with prompting, we try to encourage using natural language, be specific about your audience, your characters, your plot. So for example, it can be something like, hey, ChatGPT, please write a 200-word children's story about an alien meeting a little girl. So those were kind of our parameters, 200 words or an 8-line poem that you're working with ChatGPT to create. And then, of course, you can always modify it with ChatGPT. Just keep in mind that there are those limitations with how much you can have a conversation with ChatGPT. And it does a pretty good job about breaking it down into main sections. So once we get a story we like, we then move on to images. And you could simply ask, please create an image for each major scene of this short story, or you could copy and paste a certain section. And so we'll see a little bit of that. And then if you wanted to be more detailed, you could guide it more with things that include colors, locations, style, the style of art, whether it's portrait, watercolor, hyper-realistic, and add descriptive words, vibrant, good lighting, super detailed. With the image, you can also hover over it. There should be a little eye information icon that you can click on, and it can show you how descriptive ChatGPT can take the prompts too, so you can see it there. And so patrons would save these images. And next is the narration part in 11 Labs. So with that, the task is to generate narration for the poem or story in its entirety and save it as an audio file. So with that, with 11labs.io, you can play around with the different settings, choose a voice, and then before you paste in your text, you can add things like read this in a calm, quiet, relaxed voice, or add all caps for emphasis, put an extra punctuation in there, and then send the prompt to AI for that voice. So that's pretty fun. You can see the interface here about all the different things you can play around with. All right, and then so the optional step is to use vdo.com for generating images, video from your images from ChatGPT. So it'll take one image as kind of the starting point and then create some video to lead up to your second image, which will be the final frame of that 4-second video that you can create in the free account. So these would be short clips that you would save import into the video editing software. And so the goal kind of is with the 11 Labs narration, those can be 1 to 3 minutes. So maybe repeating your images or having some video in there to make it a more immersive and dynamic storytelling viewing experience is the goal. So here's a little demo of what Vdo Lab or Vdo.com looks like. And then a pro tip too, if you're using Clipchamp, which is a browser-based video editing, you can import your 4-second vdo.com clip and then adjust the speed at which it plays. So you have a 4-second video, play it at half speed. Now you have an 8-second clip. And then it's also good to reuse them if you can in your story too. So there's a little video clip going of the alien meeting the little girl. All right. So there you go, a fun-filled workshop activity with hands-on learning along with a discussion starter about AI tools. Really simple, fun to do. Check out that YouTube channel. The videos are amazing. I'm sure your patrons will have a lot of fun with this. And so now I'll turn it over to Chris for digital literacy and responsible AI use.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again here. Yes, welcome to part 2 of the webinar. I want to kind of walk us through some semi case studies type things that this whole workshop has reminded me of, and the ethical considerations around AI. The first one that came to mind was, very early in the history of photography, there were major criticisms around that as an art format or an art medium, I should say, because they're saying like this is not the same as realistic artwork or paintings or other sort of hand-based, craft-based forms of art. It took a long time for photography to be accepted as a sort of high art medium, something that was more, required skill to use, and people were not quite in the museums for a little while. But I think this is another situation like that where over time we'll see this type of storytelling, more generally accepted. It also reminds me of in the late 70s, early 80s, the idea that electronic music or techno wasn't really music. And I'm using that term specifically because no one calls it techno anymore. But it does sort of show how over time the language you use around these tools or these art formats does change, and that sort of reflects how society sees it. And I actually think the best example is later on in the 90s with the advent of the World Wide Web and personal computers, and of course with all of that online security and cybersecurity being in consideration, there were conversations in the IT world at that time around how maybe we shouldn't teach people what is a phish or how encryption works or how these other sort of nefarious things work, because if we show them how to be safe online, they're also going to know how to be hackers or to, do those same things to cause harm. there are a lot of parallels, I think, between that and the conversations we have around like, copyright and other, ways that these tools could be used the wrong way. But again, it comes down to technique and intent, and we're seeing what we're seeing in our workshops is that there's a lot of, initial confusion or misconceptions about how these things work. And without these hands-on experiences, it's hard to have that conversation because we're not always talking about the same thing. Using a large language model yourself is very different than just hearing about it or thinking that that's how it works. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen people have like aha moments when they realize that there's a little more to it than just a, search engine type reply. The fact that it can remember some things and you can give it feedback is a total game changer for a lot of people. And that sort of leads into why they're so excited later on to see what else they can do with these tools. So in the context of digital literacy, I think this is really important. We need to empower our users and feel like they have learned something, that they have an interest in learning more about these things. And this is one area where I think these workshops really deliver. I already see some people in chat mentioning how much they love this idea. I sincerely hope you try this yourself with your own community and see how it works with, the types of questions you get and the types of stories that people make from it. I think with that, we're going to move on to Q&A here. I've been answering a few in the chat box here, but maybe what we can do is let's see if we have any that are unanswered right now. Sorry, I have to find my chat screen again here. Oh, one person did ask about, are we saving the prompts for these when people create these stories? We didn't for the first round, although that did come up a few times during the Q&A section. People were wondering like, how much of this was you? How much of this was the AI? I'll say for the ones that I create, I usually modify a few things for sort of comedic effect or, if you add a few extra embellishments during the story. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, I see. I think you've answered a few questions. Okay, okay, and the link to the YouTube channel and the playlist is in the chat here. Also, Aaron mentions using, a found poetry project. Yeah. Yeah, it can really excel in dialogue and also mimicking characters or replying as if they are a character. So that's another fun way to use it. Is not just to write the script, but also to have it say, okay, you're going to play as this person, and then I'm chatting back to you as another character, and like have the, sort of a generated dialogue that way. Maybe this next one, so Patty, I'll start off by saying, no, it's not. Especially in the first round in 2023, it was not many sort of super techie people. There were a few that were kind of like professionals in different areas. So I remember we had one person who, worked in the law office. There was another one who was a teacher. There were a few, different professions represented, but not many people who are like, I'm I work at OpenAI and I'm here for, observing. I would say in most cases there were in the groups anyway. When those formed, there was one person who was maybe a little more experienced with these things, but they were also kind of helping us along the way too. With they were sharing thoughts about like, oh, you're getting the same image again because you're using the same image seed, and that's why it keeps repeating the same sort of the thing that they were trying to get rid of kept showing up because probably because of that. Um, Nick, Melissa, would you agree? Like it was fairly different mix of skill levels.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, I agree. There was even someone who couldn't he brought his work laptop and he couldn't get ChatGPT to work on it for some reason,
Oh,
and he just did the whole thing on his phone, which I was
oh
really
yeah.
impressed with. Yeah, he did like all of it, even the video editing and everything.
That's another good point too, is this works really well as a workshop because it is all web-based, and especially with the addition of Clipchamp and that setup in this latest round, that definitely sped things up a lot because there were people in the 2023 ones that maybe one person knew iMovie a little bit, or they were kind of like my feeling was that there were way fewer people that actually finished their video project in the 2 hours this first time, a lot more, later versions. Maybe part of that is because the images that we're getting out of it were more usable.
Yeah, and I do want to add too that the second round we did, it was for teens and adults. We have done middle school AI programs too, so it really does work for all ages. In our last group, we had a kid come in with his adult, so that was a great pairing. It's a good family activity too.
That reminds me also, we did one other version of this with a local retirement community, and the setup was a little bit different. It was more of a sort of presenter and group participation type event, so asking for prompts or from images, but sort of one video at the end that everyone created together. So yeah, you can really mix and match this depending on the context or the audience or the skill levels and things. I also think it would be interesting, Nick and Melissa, if we want to do this again later near October, like a Halloween themed one of these or something like that. That you could, totally tie this to other events or use, everyone does a variation of the same sort of story or genre or yeah, there's just a lot. There's a lot there. Oh, and Amanda's mentioning, yes, okay, so nuclei.com. Yeah, and that's interesting too. There are some other AI tools that will do this entire process like from start to finish. Like you can kind of automate some of this, but one of the things that Nick mentioned earlier is that it is important to kind of break this down into steps so that people understand that they get the hands-on experience with each different format and see what options are there. I also want to highlight 11 Labs. That is maybe the underdog of this story too, because that has changed tremendously since 2023 as far as the creative parameters that you have to play with. And of course, audio is, that's very important to storytelling. So, yeah, having different characters or different sort of emotional impact in those. Jamie, your question about the staff intensive, was it staff intensive to offer? Um, do we have a lot of questions? I feel like there was a lot of group sort of knowledge sharing happening. So, I mean, most of the questions are probably earlier on with like the initial setup and thing. But then once people got started, then we were, a few minor problems with like save as images or like trying to make it fit into their video editor. And I see so we're at the final minute here of our talk here. I'll just want to thank everyone again for attending this workshop, or sorry, this webinar about our workshop. Um, I am happy to talk more about this if you have questions. My name is Chris Markman. I'm listed on our website. You can also find in the description of this webinar links back to our website, and we have our AI page, and we'll have other things listed there too. So thank you again.
Thanks,
I
everyone.
sincerely hope you try this out. It's really fun. I gotta say. Uh,
And you can stop the recording now if you'd like.